Here are the review problems, or just our warm-up for our second day when we're doing geometry review, but these are mixed. And remember that you can't use a calculator when you're doing these on the TSI. So if I was saying, which of the following equalities is not true? Underline that not to make sure I don't forget it. Half the trick of doing well is to actually see what the question is asking for. All right? So not true. Now, some kids don't know how to read that symbol there. All right? Maybe they learn the silly alligator trick, which drives many of us math teachers nuts. And yes, I know a math teacher taught you that. But it's better if you understand what the phrase is. So what the heck does that symbol come from? I'm going to go ahead and draw this. You've seen these before. Hopefully you're going, oh yes, that's a number line, right? And it goes in both directions. Pretend I can fit everybody in. Okay. Now, if I asked you for a number greater than 2, you could tell me 3 or 4 or pretty much anything on this side. So this was adopted as the greater than symbol, because that's where all the greater numbers are, to the right. If I asked you for a number less than 2, what direction will you go in? You'll go to the left. This is the less than symbol. It's important, so when you're reading these problems, you are looking for greater than or less than. Now, taking this problem, part A, I'm going to rewrite it as a more normal fraction. Fractions are a lot easier to compare if they have common denominators. What can I multiply this by so that I have the same denominator on both sides? Well, hopefully you realize a good common denominator would be 21. So I'm going to go 7 over 7 times 2 over 3 is less than 5 over 7. And this one I need to do 3 over 3. 7 times 2 is 14, 14 over 21 is less than 15 over 21, right? And is that true? Yes, that is true. So I'll put true here. But I'm not looking for true, okay? Now there's a shortcut for this, and it's fine as long as you follow these steps, because if you did not know this, cross multiplying is just about getting the same denominators on both sides. And then, once you get the same denominators, you don't need to look at them anymore. You can just look at the numerators. So if I were to cover these, right, do you see how 7 times 2 and 3 times 5? But the question is, which side do you put the products on? So let me start B. So B here is 5/8 is greater than 3/5. Well, if you cross multiply right here and right here, 5 times 5, should I put that on the left or the right? Well, what you're going to do is you put it on the same side where that number is the numerator. So, see, that's not the numerator, so don't put it on that side. You put it on this side. So you're going to say 25 is greater than, and 8 times 3, we're going to put this on the right because the 3 is in the numerator. The 8 is not. So 8 times 3 is 24. And is that true? Yes, it is. So that one's true. C, 1 over 8 is less than 2 over 7. We're going to cross multiply. Top number's on the left for this one, so it stays on the left. Top number's on the right for this one, so it stays on the right. And that's true, so that's good. All right? So it's probably D. Let's check to be sure. So for D, it's 1/3 is greater than 2/5. Top number for this product is on the left, so I put a 5 on the left. Top number for this product is on the right, so I put the 6 on the right. There's your false. Okay? So this is false. The correct answer is D. Now, this one was a really fun problem in class because some kids came up with some great ideas to do it. Now, some kids are comfortable multiplying by 0.4. They realize that 40% of a number is multiply it by 40% or 0.40 or just 0.4. Go ahead, and if you're comfortable with that, just figure out which one of these gives us 24. All right? And that's fine. You could be more algebra-like and say that, I know that 0.4 times my number x is equal to 24, and then I could solve and divide 24 by 0.4. And that's not too bad either. And then you could do your long division. All right, move this over 1. You remember that from middle school? 0.0, so it gets over here. And 4 into 24 is 6. 24, 0, 0. So you can already see what the answer is. But here's some of the really clever things. So here's some of the clever ones that some of the kids did. Some of the kids were not comfortable with multiplying by 0.4. Some of them said, I know 10%. I'm good at 10%. So they did 10%. 10% of 20 is 2. 10% of 60 is 6. 10% of this is 3.5. 10% of 6 is 0.6. But I want 40%. So just multiply all these by 4 and see which one gives me 24. Very clever. There's still another one that I really love, and 2 of my kids thought of this. They said, wait a second, 40% of my mystery number is 24. They both did exactly the same thing. And I said, I don't like 40%. 40% is tough. But I'm pretty good. 20% should be pretty good. I like 20%. Because the reason 40% is tough, it's hard to figure out 100% from 40%. Could I figure out 20% of x? Well, hopefully you figured out that's just half as much. How many 20% do I need to make a full 100%? I need 5 of them. So then you go ahead and you multiply that by 5 and you get 60. Now, if you still weren't comfortable with that, you go, okay, if 40% of x is 24, and 20% of x is 12, then 10% of x is 6, right? And then you say, oh, to get 100%, I multiply that by 10. So look at all the different ways that we could solve this problem. Honestly, this is probably one of my favorites here, because it's just cool. Now, number 3. If 5 halves divided by 1/8 equals p, then what is the value of p? So a lot of you actually know what you're supposed to do when you divide fractions. You're saying, oh, Mrs. Overman, you just flip and multiply. Someone said keep change flip. And yes, that will work. But being the math teacher I am, that's 20. Do you know why that works? Does it really make sense that division suddenly turns into multiplication? I'm going to show you where that comes from. I always know where this comes from. That's the same as that, right? 5 halves divided by 1/8. But I hate dividing by 1/8. That's hard. What's an easy number to divide by? Now, some people will say 0. No, actually, that's a really hard number to divide by. Try it on your calculator. You'll get an error. There's actually a much easier number to divide by. Some of you might say 2. 2 is pretty good, but if I ask you to divide 17,315 by 2, you'd have to do some work. But if I ask you to divide 17,315 by 1, you automatically know the answer, don't you? So 1 is the easiest number to divide by in the world. How can I change 1/8 so it's easy and make it 1? Well, if I multiply it by the reciprocal, that's going to turn into 1. But if I do that to the bottom, I have to do it to the top. Now, if you cover it, it looks, now this is, when I started with this, that is this, right? But this is going to kind of look like it disappears. It simplifies. And it looks like you just end up with a keep change flip. So that's where that shortcut comes from, in case you were wondering. Finally, 5M, this is such an easy problem, but you know, every class period somebody misses it, and here's why. Most of you will do this, and you're like, M is 2. Yes, it is. But wait a second. The answer's not 2. At least it's not A, because they didn't ask you for M. They said, what is 4M? So the actual answer is 8.